Well, while my while my computer comes up, we'll go ahead and get started with our public hearing this evening. I want to call the meeting to order, or call the public hearing to order. This is a public hearing that is scheduled to discuss the Greenville County Program Year 2015 Annual Action Plan for the City of Greer. The City of Greer is fortunate to work with the Greenville County Community Development Block Grant, which is administered through the offices of the Greenville County, help me out, Martin.
Redevelopment Authority.
Redevelopment Authority, excuse me, and Mr. Martin Livingston, who heads that group and who has done a wonderful job in directing us through a strategy to address not only our housing needs but community improvements as well too, and to look at opportunities for affordable housing, and very uniquely to our plan to take some of that program income and to put it back in a reoccurring fashion to our program. And so in that regard, we are one of the few communities, at least in this immediate area, that have the ability to use some of those reoccurring funds to continue to address our housing and community needs, even in the face of irregularities in the funding stream from the federal government. And we are appreciative of the advice and strategy that was brought to this council long before any of us sat in these chairs, and it has served us well for a number of years. But as we renew that commitment and affirm our commitment to work with them, we set aside a time for a public hearing, and Mr. Livingston joins us this evening to bring us some direction in that regard, and also offer the public an opportunity to comment in regards to our upcoming plan. With that, I will turn the podium over to Mr. Martin Livingston.
Good evening, Mayor Danner, members of City Council, and as well as staff. Thank you for allowing us to come and speak to you regarding your Community Development Block Grant funds and home partnership funds. This year, we had to go through a 5-year planning process.
Thank you.
We had to go through a 5-year planning process to identify needs for the 2015 to 2019 fiscal year. These activities identified are for activities that the community will receive. They're basically comments, general comments from the public. Earlier this year, we held a public hearing, or basically public meeting in the library, just to hear comments from the community. We're continuing to take comments until the end of March, and we have provided you with a list of the comments we've received so far. We're also required to complete a 1-year action plan. The 1-year action plan identifies the funding that's available for the City of Greer beginning 2015, which is July 1st, 2015. Community Development Block Grant funds, or CDBG funds, can be used for a variety of activities. It's also very flexible. CDBG can be used for projects benefit an entire neighborhood, such as public works, infrastructure, sewer improvements, parks, and lighting. Projects must be in neighborhoods meeting the 51% low model requirement. Projects dealing with housing, such as owner-occupied rehabilitation or new construction in limited situations. Public service activities such as elderly services, public facilities such as community centers, and projects dealing with the elimination of slums and blight, such as demolition activities. Home funds must be used for affordable housing activities, which can include new construction for rent or home ownership, as well as owner-occupied rehabilitation. This year, beginning July 1st, the city will receive $434,000 in CDBG funds, and in home funds, $263,000, a little over $263,000. This year, you're seeing an increase in your CDBG funds of about $50,000. in the program income side, and on the program income side for home, you're seeing another increase of about $50,000. These are based on the estimates of incomes that we've received since July 1st of last year. We're projecting that by July 1st of this coming year, this is what you'll have available to you. That number may grow greater than that after June 30th, when we have completed our financial analysis for the city. The income that you're receiving is increasing primarily because of home sales and repayment of loans. Our CDBG and home grants are decreasing. CDBG grant is decreasing by 1%, and home grant is decreasing by about 5% compared to last year, from what I understand from staff. We also have a resolution, a sample resolution for you to review. And we're also taking any comments from the public regarding any of the information that we presented today as well. And I'll answer questions council or general public may have.
Thank you, sir. Council?
Martin, I had a real quick question. Number 5 here, it says projects to eliminate slums and blights on a spot basis. And it says it has to be declared blighted by the city codes department. Is that retroactive, or does that need to be now?
What do you mean, Richard?
I mean, does that mean, is there a list, for, like if we had a list, for instance, of blighted areas that are out there right now, or could we target one of those buildings and then do it after the fact?
Well, currently, right now, we work very closely with code enforcement, city code enforcement office, and they provide us with, as they get them properties, they make us aware of them, and then once they provide us with the documentation, we proceed with demolition. Good example of that is, I think it was a code case recently where we demolished a house in Needmore. The code enforcement office let us know about it. We went through the process. We put a lien on the property for the demolition of the property, but they made us aware of all the code problems that was on the property and the notifications that were provided to the owner. We then notified the owner first that we've been notified by the city that they've asked us to demolish it. And we provide the owner with an estimate of the demolition costs, and then we record the lien after that point. But the process can be where you declared an area where you want to take down more properties. The code enforcement officer would have to let us know that those areas are blighted or need to be demolished. We can also demolish city-owned property. In some cases, 3511 Brushy Creek was a city-owned property that was substandard. And then there was also another building on a recreation site that we demolished that structure as well. So it can be on an area basis or it can be on a specific location, but code enforcement must declare that particular property blighted.
But does the owner still own the property at that point? When
Yes, they still own the property.
Wow.
All we're placing is a lien on the property.
So, in other words, they'd have to make you whole before they could sell the property, in other words.
It depends on the situation. I can tell you from the city standpoint, when we place a lien on the property, what typically happens is that property goes up for tax sale. When it goes to tax sale, all those liens are wiped up. Those liens remain on the property until the property owner clears up the liens in some way. In some cases, if it goes to the Forfeited Land Commission now, all those liens are wiped away except for federal and state tax liens. It all depends on the situation of the property.
But the main objective is just to remove the blight. That's the
correct.
point.
The main objective is to clear that blighted situation, which can affect other property owners on that street. So that's part of the reason for taking that property down.
We often find that it just occurs with abandoned property, that we can't locate a local owner. They may be out of state. It's not always the case, but that's sometimes what we'll typically run into. And it starts to depreciate property values of other properties in the area, and that's why it's important for us to get the house removed. Sometimes it's a garage, sometimes it's a house. That can depend, but we've had very good success in identifying properties that would qualify for the use of the CDBG funds, and then have partnered with Greenville County Redevelopment Authority, again, through our codes department.
Others? I'll ask if there's comment from the public. Questions? Hearing none, I'll ask a second time, is there comment from the public in regards to the Greenville County Program Year 2015 Annual Action Plan as presented by Mr. Livingston this evening? Having asked a second time and gotten no response, I will ask a third and final time in regards to the public hearing this evening. Is there anyone who would like to make comment or ask questions in regards to the Greenville County Program Year 2015 Annual Action Plan? Hearing none, I will call the public hearing to a close. We will.
And we're also continuing to take comments until the end of March. If you receive additional comments, we'd like to include them in the consolidated plan and the annual action plan.
Thank you, sir, and we will make that information available. This is a request for action, and we will place that request on a upcoming meeting. Thank you, sir. With that, then, I want to call this meeting to order. This is a regularly scheduled City Council meeting called and convened this February the 24th, 2015. Having called the meeting to order, I'm going to ask that you will join us as we stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and the invocation, both led by Councilwoman Judy Albert.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let's pray. Dear Heavenly Father, we do thank you for this blessed day that you've given us today. We thank you for each day that we're able to get up and move around. We just thank you for each gift that you've given us, and we pray, dear Lord, for our nation. We pray that for our national leaders, and we pray for each of our state and local leaders. We just pray that you will lead us and guide us in the direction that you would have us go, and may your will always be done. In Jesus' name we do pray. Amen.
Amen.
For those items that are germane to our published agenda, we set aside time for public forum, an opportunity for you to speak in regards to items that are on the agenda. Ms. Duncan, do we have anyone to appear in public forum this evening?
No, sir.
With that, then, we'll move to the minutes of the council meeting. You have contained in your packet the minutes from the February 10th meeting. I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Any items of note for the clerk? Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council departmental reports are contained in your packet. You've got the reports that have information in regards to activity for January 2015. Those are to provide you with information. Department heads or administrator will be glad to give you any additional information you may require. Mr. David Seifert joins us to give us an update on our financial activity.
Thank you, Mayor and Council. Tonight we bring to you the financial budget report for the period ended January 31st, 2015. Beginning with the general fund revenue, we have recorded $8,189,951 and expenditures of $9,601,031. That amount carries us 10% under budget at January 31st. Referencing the dashboards, we have a negative revenue benchmark variance of $660,800 and a positive benchmark variance on the expenditure side of $944,256. Those two numbers together give us a total overall positive benchmark variance of $283,456. If you'll reference the cash analysis, we have a carrying balance at January 31st of $6,117,547. Moving to the hospitality fund, we have revenue recorded to January 31st of $1,008,856, and that amount presently is 7% over budget. We have expenditures recorded of $89,840, and that is currently at 53% under budget. And then the carrying cash balance for the hospitality fund is $1,347,721. And finally, we have the stormwater fund, revenue recorded of $119,324. That is currently 41% under budget. We have expenditures recorded of $106,642. That amount is 35% under budget. And the carrying cash balance for the stormwater fund at January 31st is $887,876. And that's our summary report for the financial budget for January 31st. Be happy to take any questions you may have.
Council? Thank you, Mr. Sutter.
Thank you.
Appreciate the information. Fire Chief Chris Harvey joins us this evening to give us a presentation in regards to our Public Protection Classification Summary Report. Chief, floor is yours, sir.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. The ISO, the Insurance Service Office Organization, is a rating organization that rates fire departments on their ability solely to address structure fires, how they compile up to their standards in attacking structure fires. Standards address anything from the equipment on the top of the truck to the number of training hours to the water system. It's basically composed of the water system, the training, the communications, the fire department, the water system, and the communications that are available for emergency response. ISO does not take any consideration in what you need to answer any medical calls, rescue calls. They don't care about car fires. It's solely about homeowners and commercial structures, and it's all about structure firefighting. The good thing is that in the review tonight, you will see I've got it when we had our last inspection in 2007 to 2014. On the fire department side, you can see that the credit for engine companies, we received 10, have a possible 10 points in 2007, and in 2014 we received 6 out of a possible 6 points. There's been some changes to the schedule, and you'll see those as we go on through this short presentation. Credit for reserve pumpers, we got maximum credit in 2007 and again in 2014. Credit for pumper capacity, again, we got full credit in those categories. Credit for ladder and service company, we got a 4.91 out of a possible 5 in 2007, and in 2014 we got 4 out of a possible 4. The credit for the reserve ladder, we obtained a little bit of credit, even though we do not have a reserve ladder truck, for some of the equipment that's carried on our service truck that would comply for reserve ladder requirements. Again, 0.3 out of 1 in 2007 and 0.22 out of 0.5 in 2014. Our credit for our deployment analysis, 2061 out of a possible 4 in 2007, and this year, 2014 is 7.09 out of a possible 10. Credit for company personnel, in 2007 we had a 9.89 out of a possible 15, and in 2014 we had a 6.84 out of a possible 15. As you can see, that's a reduction of 3.05 points, and talk a little bit about that. Some of those figures would come from the loss of personnel that we've had since 2007, and that would include even some of the volunteer personnel. A paid person is, in the schedule, is 0.63 points, and a volunteer is 0.21 points. So, Captain Darrell was very familiar with those saying that took 3 volunteers to equal 1 paid person in the schedule. So that's a reduction in that number. Credit for training, you'll see we have a 6.71, 6.21 out of a possible 9, and a 6.86 out of a possible 9. Made some improvements in training in 2014 also. The total credit for the fire department, in 2007, we had a 39.92 out of a possible 50. 2014, a 36.51 out of possible 50. Any questions on that slide before I continue?
Yeah, I've got, on credit for reserve ladder,
Yes.
do we not have that in, could we not update our joint use agreement with Pelham to include a ladder? Would that not give us, I mean, it's not a lot, it's only
Yeah.
.25 that we lost, .27.
Some of that went into that figure. It is included, you know, if it was in a certain distance to the,
So we did get credit for it,
Yes.
okay. What is credit for deployment analysis?
that's your station location and how close you are. If you're a mile and a half to all residents, or excuse me, a mile and a half commercial and 5 miles to residential.
And where do we lose our most?
It doesn't give you the exact location. Used to, you could get the improvement statements.
Right.
They don't give you the improvement statements anymore. So they give you some makeup points, as we'll talk about toward the end, but they don't give you your improvement statements. So, yeah, if you go by the numbers, it would probably be our longest response areas, somewhere in the 101 corridor, 101 south corridor.
I've got a question, but I think you'll probably pick it up later on, so I'll
Okay.
just wait.
Others?
On the, I'll continue then. On the public classification, the credit for receiving and handling fire alarms in 2007, we received a 6.5, and then the credit for the fire department was 39.92, and then the credit for the water supply was 36.49. In 2014, again, the credit for receiving in fire alarms went up to 8.05. The fire department dropped to 36.51, and then the water supply was 34.91, dropped just a little bit. And then the community risk reduction was a new category that went up, and we received a possible 4.4 out of 5.5. I'll talk a little bit about that here in just a second. It's basically credit for public education, public fire education. We now get credit for fire inspections, fire investigations, and the qualifications of those people doing those jobs. And the water supply, you can see the breakdown of the water supply. We have an excellent water supply. City Deputy does a great job and continues to make improvements to the water system. Again, 2014, they broke down total points of 25.1 of 30. Our hydrants, 2.81, possible 3 points. The loss there is there's still some two-way hydrants, just 2 connections on hydrants in the system. We got maximum credit for the inspections and flow testing, and we got total credit again for the water supply, 34.91 out of a possible 40 points.
Chief, and this is the one I was going to ask you about. Do they, for your water supply, take into account your flow requirements on certain buildings?
You should have a copy of the total review capsule. You should have a copy of the whole survey. At the end of the survey, if not, I will give you a copy of that.
Well, I was just wondering if do they just take a certain amount of the buildings? And,
Yes.
Okay, so like the
Target hazards, they went out,
like the battery plant, they wouldn't have included that, right?
anything that have a fire flow of over 3,500 gallons per minute, while it may be decided on the testing part, is took out of the process. Those buildings are evaluated on their own. Any sprinkler facilities took out of the
Emergency communications, we received a credit for emergency reporting of 1.95 of hospital 3. The credit for telecommunicator is kind of a benefit to us to a certain extent because we're in 2 counties and we get credit for the dispatch personnel that's in Spartanburg and Greenville, since calls are transferred in their process. Part of the E911 process when a call was called to 911. In Greenville County, it goes to Greenville County Dispatch. In Spartanburg County, it goes to Spartanburg County. They transfer the call to us. So they're part of the process. So this time around, we got to get credit for that. So we got maximum credit for the credit for telecommunicators. The credit for dispatch circuits, 2.1 out of a possible 3. What we didn't get credit for is it's called monitoring for integrity. It's a very expensive system, but it basically is not monitoring your power. It's monitoring that your radio it has a signal that's working all the time. So it's a very expensive system. And then the credit for handling and receiving and handling fire alarms, 8.05 out of a possible 10. Under the emergency reporting, as you can see, we've got full credit for the basic 911, the E911 wireless. We got more credit this time for the E911 voice over internet. And the computer-aided dispatch, we got additional credit this time. We did not get any credit because the CAD system that we operate under, which Graham County is in the process of replacing the CAD system for dispatching, does not have the GIS and the automobile vehicle locator type systems in place. In other words, if we had the GIS and the ABL, there's actually a program on last night, I think on the national news that showed about 911 calls hitting cell towers and not giving the specific location. They actually made a call from the 911 center and it came out 2 blocks away. The GIS type information and the ABL systems, the ABL will show the closest unit to a specific location where that call is coming in from the GIS. Hopefully the new CAD system is going to have a lot of these functions. And as we talked about earlier today in the process, we're trying to put new iPads in each of the trucks so that we show that information coming into the iPads in the truck too. And again, our emergency reporting, we actually had an improvement in emergency reporting this time around too, because of our systems that we do all our alarm reports on. In South Carolina, back in 2007, I think we were one of 24 Class 2 fire departments. Now there's 48 Class 2s. There's 5 Class 1s. The Class 1 is the top that you can get. Class 10 is basically no fire protection. We're, like I said, one of 48 now in the state of South Carolina. The effect of the insurance ratings from residential varies from insured to insured. Most of the time you will not see any difference, if any, from a Class 2 to 4 or 5. And it comes into play more on the commercial side. As I said, most of the bigger commercial structures are rated on their own anyhow, so the better the rating, the better it is for them. And in comparison to our neighbors, Bowling Springs Fire Department, Greenville County, just got their Class 1 certification back. And Duncan is a Class 2, Greenville City is a Class 2, Lake Cunningham is a Class 4, Pelham Batesville is a Class 2, Regal is a Class 4, Spartanburg City is a Class 2, Taylor's is a Class 2, Tiger River is a Class 2. In the survey, the rating survey, there's several areas. I don't want you to think of just personnel is the only area that make points made up. But just for example, like on the emergency reporting side, on the GIS type CAD system, that was something the city had to try to implement on their own. It was just the points that you would get to move up. It's just not feasible really. So Buckingham County is going to be suing the new CAD system that will have these in it. Personnel is the way you can get it, maximum points. People say, do you want to try to strive for a class 1 again? Again, it's just a benchmark to try to show you where you're at. It recognizes certain national standards like NFPA 1901 for the equipment that has to be on the truck. It recognizes the time that it takes to dispatch a call from the time it's received, and there's the survey that goes on and on. They have simplified the process a little bit easier. The public education side was great because actually it brought us back in to the risk reduction side. I'm sorry. Getting those points brought us back in and helped us maintain our class 2. Questions? I'll be glad to answer any of you.
Council?
I have one comment. Our fire department is a 2, which is great, but when you look at a class 1 department to a class 9 department, that's not necessarily indicative how well they're able to control an emergency or a fire. There can be a class 9 out there that can do it just as good or better than a class 1, and if we are rating how well, that's one thing this report does not. They don't report it, but they don't report on the amount of the value of the buildings and homes that you cover versus your actual loss, which it probably should. But our fire department should be, if that's the way that we were rated, we'd be a 1, been a 1 a long time ago.
And I also like to say again, the shared use facility, home station 4, that helped us out too with personnel. We basically wind up our average turnout is would equal 11 paid personnel and 2 either off-duty or volunteers on an average coming back to structure fires.
Others? Chief, we appreciate your work and want to pass along to your men. We thank you for the effort that they put forward, and particularly in regards to the public education piece. I know that's one that you're particularly proud of, and the training piece, which is another area that we've really shined in that regard. And so for you and all your men, we thank you for the effort that you put into keeping us in that Class 2 area, and hopefully our public appreciates the benefit that brings to them as well, too. So.
And it's also, I think, we're remiss, but like Mr. Tuttle said in the audience tonight, the Commission of Public Water System is valuable in what we do. Some of my friends that are not fortunate to have a public water system have to rely on hydrants and drafting and stuff. As Jay said, they may do a great job, but they're just trying to find any ounce of water they can sometimes. So we're very fortunate to have the water system that we have and the work CPW does on it. And the maintenance program they do with the hydrants too.
Thank you. Hope you feel better as well, too. With that, we'll move to the administrator's report. Mr. Driggers?
Thank you, Mayor, members of council. Obviously, we've been together today now for 7+ hours, and we still have a little time left this evening, and we will be together for 8 or 9 hours tomorrow. We are engaged right now in our annual planning retreat. Obviously, we're doing that on site. A number of things that we are attempting to cover. We appreciate your attendance and participation in that program today, and again, we will continue that through tomorrow. It will help us as we finalize our planning for the coming year. It'll help us as we update our comprehensive plan, our strategic plan, and as well as we begin to unveil our community master plan. So again, thank you for your time and commitment to that process. We do that each year. It is extremely valuable to us, and we hope that you're gaining good information from that as well. It's a two-way street. So again, thank you for that process. There are a couple of matters in executive session that I would like to discuss with council. One is a continuation of our planning process on a couple of general personnel matters. Just as updates will not require any action. So I would like to ask council's consideration of two personnel matters in executive session.
Thank you, sir. And as always, the administrator is available for questions and comments, and we'll be glad to help you with any of those. With that, then, we're going to move to items of old business, the first of which before us this evening is an ordinance to amend the City of Greer Code of Ordinance, Chapter 90, Utilities, Article 2, Sewer Use and Pretreatment by repealing in its entirety and replacing it with the following and adding Attachment A, Attachment B, Attachment C, and Attachment D. We gathered information from Mr. Tuttle and CPW in regards to this issue at our last meeting. Mr. Tuttle is with us again this evening. Should there be any questions in regards to this ordinance, I'll entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
Have a motion and a second. Floor is open for discussion. Any additional information from CPW that may be beneficial to us in this regard?
No, sir.
All righty, thank you. With that then, we will move forward. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Let us echo as well our thanks to CPW, not only for the excellent job that you do in providing water for our emergency services, but all the work that you do in terms of sewer issues, water issues, gas issues, and electric issues. You are a valuable partner to the city, and we certainly appreciate all that you do to help us and the growth that you have helped facilitate. It is truly a partnership, and we also want to thank your crews for the work that they've done during the inclement weather. We know that your men are out even tonight, and so with that, please pass along that we appreciate their efforts. If indeed you've been watching the weather, it appears that they may be in for a long night tomorrow night, and we wish you Godspeed and safety in terms of dealing with the inclement weather. And certainly, if we can help as a city, please let us know. So, thank you, sir.
The entire city and everything. Definitely appreciate your confidence.
Thank you, sir. We've got the second and final reading of ordinance number 3-2015, an ordinance approving a major change to a design review district for certain real property inside the city of Greer. Mr. Pace.
Again, Mayor and Council, this was presented to you at your last regularly scheduled meeting. Or bringing that back with no new information in regards to that.
Council, you heard the recommendation of Mr. Pace. I will accept a motion for second and final reading of ordinance number 3-2015.
So moved.
And a second. With that, the floor is open for any further discussion or questions of Mr. Pace in regards to this ordinance. Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Bookert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council will move to the second and final reading of ordinance number 8-2015. This is an ordinance authorizing the conveyance of any and all interest in certain real property in the city of Greer. Mr. Pace?
Mayor and Council, again, the only change to this is the $5,000 in earnest money has been deposited and beneficiary to us as due diligence for this property.
Council will entertain a motion to receive.
So moved.
Second.
And I'll need a second. Got the second. Floor is open for discussion. Hearing none. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Boofert,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. We have the first reading of ordinance number 9-2015, an ordinance amending the City of Greer zoning code to add section 617, donation bins, including the purpose and intent definitions, general requirements and conflicts, and to amend section 85.2 to provide requirements for signage on donation bins. Ordinance 9-2015 is a request to amend the zoning regulations, the purpose of which is donation bin ordinances to regulate the use of donation collection containers on properties contained within the City of Greer. Mr. Pace, you want to give us an update in that regard?
Again, thank you, Mayor and Council. We brought this to you a while earlier for your review. You did have some concerns with section 617.3 in the general requirements. What I have done, taken the liberty to go ahead and propose to you some amendment changes to that, and I'll let you pass those around.
Thank you.
Thank you. Again, from comments you made at the prior meeting in regards to spacing of these bins on property and how many could be on a piece of property, would they be taken up by one agency or two or more, and the placement, who would determine where those should be or should not be located in regards to the property. So what you see is I have went through and kind of changed around a little bit of the text in there and removed some of the text that was prior to there. And again, making those changes, they are bold and underlined as to what would be changed or added to this. And again, this is for your review. If you'd like to make other changes to this document, we can go through that process also.
Mr. Pace, just as a matter of clarification, it says that never mind. I get it now. I see the rest of it here. Never mind.
Glenn, what if, I know there's a business on Wade Hampton that has a donation bin as part of their business. Are they going to have to apply for a permit for this?
According to this, my interpretation would be that they would have to apply, even though they are a part of that business. I don't know which one you're specifically speaking of.
Goodwill?
I thought they'd only done internal intakes.
No, they've got one in their
The
drive.
rear.
Yeah.
Yep.
I was not aware of that, but
If that's your business, I'm not sure it'd be fair to require them to pay for their own bin.
Yeah, we should.
Well, that certainly, I think, could be amended to have an exclusion for bins located on the property of the bin's owner, I would suspect.
So let's say a church wanted to do a collection for Goodwill and to have one on their property, let's say Thanksgiving time, or for women's shelter donations, can all go in that bin. Would that still apply to them also?
if you're talking about an outdoor bin, if that charitable organization or that organization places a bin, then again, I would say yes, that they would have to have one. If it was on a temporary basis, we'd be glad to look at that as a different perspective. If it was just during a couple of weeks out of the year, things like that. We've been agreeable on doing several different things in different classifications of zoning like that throughout. We don't.
Well, Glenn, picking up where Kimberly just left off on as far as a church normally carries the zoning of what's around them, and normally that's residential, right? So they're automatically excluded if we go with this.
A church is in all, or can be in all districts,
Right.
zoning districts.
Right, but normally it's zoned whatever is around it, correct?
Yes, sir. If it is residential, it would be zoned residential.
Then that way, most of your churches are zoned residential because that's where they're located.
Certainly wouldn't preclude a church from accepting donations, just not having a bin.
Right.
Yes.
Outdoor bin to do it, yeah.
The only ones I can remember a long time ago when they used to have when newspaper was so valuable, they had the churches doing the paper pelicans.
The other concern was if the person that owns the property also owns the bin, is that what we were saying?
Not the person that owns the property, the person that owns the business.
The business, right, I'm sorry.
Say if you had like Goodwill, or if Salvation Army, I don't think they have a location in Greer, but if they did, they would have to comply with all of this.
Unless we amend in some regard for an exemption.
Yeah.
Or offer it as an amendment. For the purpose of further discussion, I'll entertain a motion to receive ordinance 9-2015.
So moved.
Second.
Got a motion and a second. Floor is open for continued discussion.
Well, I propose that we exempt businesses such as Goodwill from having to pay for their own bins on their own property.
Mayor and Council, if I may propose under the recommendations that Mr. Pace has made on the handout, if we were to add a paragraph C3, that would say a permit is not required if a bin is located on the premises of the sponsoring organization.
You got it?
Excellent verbiage.
I've done this before.
Yeah, Tammy did that.
I wrote it down.
The permit is not required if the bin is located.
A permit is not required if the bin is located on the premises of the sponsoring organization. Therefore, Goodwill can have a Goodwill box. They can't have thrift. They can have Goodwill. So it only applies to the property, to the business and their own organization.
Could also amend Section A the same and just does not include churches or religious facilities, if that's a concern.
Is there a time period set up where these boxes should be picked up and cleaned out?
We've not done any requirements in regards to that. I think we did have a housekeeping provision in there.
I know I was at a shopping area the other day, and they had about 5 boxes, and all of them had stuff around them.
Yeah. What we would do is, again, inspect on a periodic basis. More than likely, at opportunities that I get to go reclaim signs that are out here on utility poles and out here in yards, at that same time, we would serve them notification that their bin is in a state of disrepair, or debris, and it needs to be policed.
Well, and I know a lot of times people just come up and throw their stuff out. They don't bother with putting them in the bins, and it's not really the party's, the business or the Salvation Army, Goodwill, or whoever, it's not their fault that it's out there.
No,
Yeah.
it is not. And that's where we, like I said, once we send them a violation notice, we'd have to give them the time to correct that issue and make it pick up on that. Most of our local agencies do a good job of policing their own. Like I said, some people do think that is a landfill site, a place to
Get rid of whatever they don't want.
Unfortunately.
The fact that there's permitting though attached to each bin now allows you to understand who the owner is, and I think it would definitely increase accountability
Yes,
as far as maintaining the integrity of the bin and the surrounding area.
right. Give us an avenue to track them and have that bill.
Well, if for no other reason than just simply to have a way to tell them that their container is overflowing or it needs to be picked up or whatever. I know of one that I noticed one day had a sign on it that, to call a 800 number or something, for pickup. So, I mean, some of these bins may not even have local owners.
Exactly, and that's what
Particularly if they're for-profit.
We'd have that information on file and be able to either A, directly mail them something, email, or give them a phone call.
Well, that
And
does-
that's why, with the signage and other things, a lot of time I'll sit on the side of the road and sit there and dial that number and talk to them on the phone and say, why did you do this, or why did you put this sign up here, and I didn't know I couldn't. And explain to you what you can and can't do. And if you take care of that, we'll forgive you this time, but next time may not be as lenient.
That's not what I tell them. I tell them if it's still here tomorrow, it's trash.
We've gotten a lot of them, I assure you.
Is that what we end up doing with the ones that are not compliant and let's say the business owner has no idea who owns it? I mean, is it a tear down or removal, or how does that work?
Yes, we would remove it, notify who we think is the appropriate owner of the bin. We would place it into an outdoor storage lot, but we would place it in storage and notify them if they have not claimed the situation. We'll either A, offer it up for gov deals on auction, or B, destroy it if it's beyond any usable.
I'll call your attention to Section 617.3, General Requirements. Paragraph G says, bin owners shall maintain the appearance of the bins in area within 10 feet of any bin. And then over on the next page, as we get into paragraph I, it deals with the city using its discretion to collect the materials or dispose of the materials. If we hold them, there's a fee to recollect those. So there is a process here of an expectation for the areas to be clean. It requires us to make notification, but we do have the ability to abate the problem ourselves as well, if necessary.
If it's a repetitive area, and they have not responded, we're going to take the situation. Skipper Bottom, he's not here. We'll usually get Skipper's guys, they assist me a lot in situations like that, and we'll reclaim whatever. Sometimes it's large 4x8 signs or whatever. We've done that with other things. Put them in storage and let them know, we got them. If you want them, it's going to cost you to give them back, but, we'll work with you.
Do we have a similar, you brought up signs, I mean, do we have a similar policy with signs? I notice a lot of repeat offenders with these bandit signs and different things. The same numbers continue to pop up and the same faces, and do we have a similar policy as far as those are concerned too?
It is extremely difficult to track them down. I mean, you can get them on the phone, but where they're operating from, a lot of times is not anywhere in the city or close by the city. So it proves to be futile effort. Sometimes it's easier just to go out and take it. Move on.
Apparently, the company that buys ugly houses, they keep a lot of signs.
They're all yellow.
They're all yellow and, yeah.
Now Gabriella as it says, is getting into that business. We've noticed her now.
Right. Yeah, she's on every corner.
Yeah, yeah, exactly. She's near the business.
Mr. Pace, in regards to the permitting process, will there be some sort of plaque, emblem, something that the owner of the box will have to affix to the box to show that they have the necessary placement permit?
No, sir, we won't require any type of decal or anything like that. We will monitor that situation on an annual basis, on a renewal basis, as to a spreadsheet that we would create within our department on our, not on a spreadsheet, but our web QA program that we use for permitting. We'll be able to permit these on that, and I'll be able to, out in the field, pull up XYZ parking lot and see that 3 have been issued for Goodwill, Salvation Army, and Joe's
Crazy place.
Shack. I'll be able to see that quite easily with digital means out in the field also.
Thank you.
Glenn, just one other question on churches. If they were under the way we have it written now, I'm a little apprehensive of changing it to blanketed for churches, even if they're not in a commercially zoned, a residentially zoned area, because there are some that are in commercially zoned.
Right.
So they would just pay for the bin to be on their property at whatever our rate, if they're not in a residential zoned area.
Currently, that's what would be required.
Right.
If they are allowed,
Right.
which would be in a non-residential area, then under the existing proposed language, they would be required to purchase the permit to have it there, unless you amend that otherwise.
I think we'll keep it that way, for me, anyway.
You can do it as a, for the zoning portion of it, and if you wish to exempt them from permits, period, you come on down in the general requirements and exempt them, period, from permit requirements.
Because as it's written, if it's zoned residential, they're not allowed. They can't get a permit because they're not allowed. If they are in a zoned area that they are allowed, they would be allowed to obtain the permit.
Ms. Duncan, did Mr. Bettis make the original motion?
No, Mr. Arrowood made it.
Mr. Harrell, would you like to amend the motion to include amendments listed in 617.3 in general requirements and to include C3, a permit is not required if the bin is located on the premises of the sponsoring organization?
Yes, I will amend my motion.
And the second was made by
Ms. Booker.
Ms. Booker.
I'll second.
Council, before you is ordinance 9-2015 as amended with notes in general requirements section 617-3, which includes the addition of C3. Permit is not required if the bin is located on the premises of the sponsoring organization. Any further comments? Questions? Discussion? Hearing none, Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes.
Thank you, Mayor.
Mr. Pace, thank you for your work on this. I think you did a good job of synthesizing our concerns in this regard and bringing us back something that is an excellent start. One of the good things about this is, if we run into something down the road that we need to change, we can and will, but I think you've created an excellent document for us to start with. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Council, we only have one item of new business this evening. That is a discussion in regards to the International Cathedral of Prayer Incorporated. This is a contractual issue that has been discussed in some regards by council. Mr. Driggers has information in regards to that contractual arrangement and some of our concerns. I'll ask him to bring us information in that regard, and then I believe we have Reverend Sandlin with us this evening. I'll allow her to speak in regards to that, and council, we will proceed from there. Mr. Driggers?
Mayor and council, enclosed in your package this evening is a copy of the original lease agreement that we entered into with International Cathedral of Prayer. There have been no amendments to that lease. There have been some recent questions concerning whether or not we were in full compliance, particularly relevant to insurance payments that were required under the lease. Those are not up to date. I advised council of that previously. You asked me to obtain an opinion from our city attorney as to whether or not that constituted default of the existing lease. I provided that legal opinion to you at your last meeting in executive session. The response to that was in the affirmative, is that yes, it is a violation of the lease agreement to not be current on those payments, and we are now advised of that. It is a default of the existing agreement, and we were asked to place that on this agenda so that there could be some additional discussion about how we may want to proceed relative to the current lease. We notified Reverend Sandling that this item had been discussed at the last meeting and advised her that it would be on the agenda for this meeting as well, and offered to her an opportunity to present to council any information she may have concerning that as well, and that invitation was extended.
Ms. Sandlin, with that background and the concerns from council, I'd like to invite you to address council in regards to our contractual arrangement and what we, at least at this point, consider to be default on the lease. So if you want to bring council information in regards to that, we'll be glad to entertain your petition.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, Mayor and City Council. I appreciate the opportunity tonight to come and share with you. And first of all, I would like to apologize for the time that it's taken to bring this to order. But back in the first of last year, I began to have some physical problems. And some of the mayor and some of the council know that I travel in my ministry, and that's how I have relationships with pastors and Christian leaders who help me keep the property and the prayer center up. And so about the last part of April of last year, I became very ill. And I spent almost 2 weeks in the hospital. It was like 12 days, had liver dysfunction, pancreatitis, several other female situations, and the doctor would not release me to travel. I was in the hospital for like 12 days, 10 to 12 days, and it just took me some time to get back on my feet. And the doctor then would not release me to travel. Well, that's my livelihood. I go to churches and hold prayer ministries. I do trainings. I do prayer schools for various, for all denominations. And so for almost a year, I did one trip, the first of this year, and just to see if I could physically hold up to that. So in light of that, in my travels is where I raise the money for the upkeep of the International Cathedral of Prayer. We have supporters, we have donors, but I have to travel sometime to where they are in order to bring that money in. So now I am doing much, much better. The doctor has released me to do some traveling, and so I would like to ask you to bear with me just a couple of more months so that I can get back on the road and do what my employment enables me to do so that I can bring this current. And I apologize. It was not anything deliberate on our part. It was just one of those life issues that kept me back. And we're dependent upon my income. So it was a struggle for us. It's been a struggle for us for about 18 months. So that's why it is in the arrears. But I have some supporters, and when I go and meet with them, they will help me bring it to where it needs to be, up to date. And it will be that way from now on, because I've got a new plan to make sure that we take care of that first and foremost. So that's why I could not get it to you.
Reverend Sandlin, would you possibly then share a little bit with the council, because we have some new members that weren't here originally, the vision that you painted for this council was that rather than having to go around to raise money for this facility, was that it was going to become self-sustaining and actually produce a revenue stream for the city. And that certainly has not happened at this point. I'm not even entirely clear as to how many people continue to meet there. Can you enlighten us some on that?
Yes, sir. We have had some people that come and some people that are not there anymore. But there is a stream of people that come from various churches. They come from various cities. They come from some of the states where I go and minister. Just in the wintertime, it's a little bit harder for people to get there from other places. But we average pretty much between 30, 40, 50 that will come in a given time. And we've had some people that have promised us just recently in calling and checking on my situation that they would be there for us to help us support what we're trying to do. And we're trying to do something for the city. We're not trying to make a name for ourselves or anything of that nature. We love our city. And when we come into this place, which we are here most of the time, somebody's here every day. And so we pray for our city, we pray for our city leaders, we pray for churches and schools and pastors and anything that people need. We try to touch their hearts with prayer. And that's our desire, is to continue to move with that. I was telling Mr. Driggers, we have in the past couple of years, well actually 3 years, we brought children in the summertime and taught them prayer classes and had activities with them and fed them lunch. We do this for some men's ministries, we do this for some women's ministries. We've had different prayer activities to go on with different groups of people from various churches. So it's active. I mean, the building is very active, and the ministry is very active. But I just did not, when I became ill, that is why I had to come off the road. And I've had to slow down, but my people have not slowed down. Things are still moving a little bit. Not just a little bit, but a lot.
Mr. Driggers, do you know right off the top of your head when Miss Sandlin first went into arrears on rent? I mean on insurance, I'm sorry.
We have remained in arrears for some time. I'm not sure that it's ever been completely caught up, but I'm not positive of that.
I think it was by the end of last year. Not last year, the year before.
Yeah.
2014 is when
Our current outstanding balance is for 2013. We have not invoiced for 2014 while we were in these discussions. So our arrears are from 2013.
Mr. Driggers, I just got a receipt from a pastor who mailed the 2013. I don't have it with me tonight, but I just got it in the mail a few weeks ago. That I can get you a copy of.
I don't know how recent that was, but at least according to our most recent records, we have an outstanding balance for 2013. And the reason, because we have not invoiced for 2014. So so the amount that you are aware of and that you're speaking of this evening is not the 2014 because we haven't invoiced for 2014. It's 2013.
Yeah, what I'm saying is, he mailed the check in 2014 to take care of the 2013 balance, and we have a receipt showing that.
I'm not aware of that.
I can bring you a copy of it tomorrow, if you'd like me to.
Well, again, if they have a receipt, we'll have a deposit. So I'm just not aware of that.
Okay.
Mr. Mayor, based on the information that's been provided to us over a long period of time, I make a motion that we authorize the administrator and our counsel, our legal counsel, to begin
To proceed with the notification of default.
yes,
And to void the lease.
right, correct. Sorry, words left me.
Have a motion and a second. Other questions of Ms. Sandlin, comments?
At any time when you became sick, did you notify the city that you were unable to make your payments?
I talked to Elizabeth several times. Yes, sir. I talked to Elizabeth.
Is that recently, or was that when you got sick?
That was after I was well enough to talk on the telephone. So I talked to Elizabeth several times. And I even had someone who was supposed to help me, and he lost his job. So I just, the physical thing just took me down. And I apologize, and we're very capable of keeping it up. I've got two meetings coming up in the next 2 months to bring it to date, to bring it current. And so after that, I know that we can handle it.
Do you have any knowledge of those contacts?
Yes, I am aware that there has been communication through my office and Ms. Adams. I think that communication has been most recent, not during a prior period.
Right.
To be exact and to be fair to Ms. Sandlin, I don't know exactly when those communications have had. I can determine those. We can look at our records on when those communications have taken place. I am a bit concerned that if she's indicating that there is a paid receipt, that all outstanding payments are up to date. I mean, that's...
No, it's not all outstanding.
Okay.
But now,
I thought we had a receipt for all of 2013.
that's what the receipt says, yes.
Okay.
But it was sent in January by a pastor in 2014, January 2014, to pay the 2013 balance. Because I had not, for some reason, that, when you called me about the insurance, the first time, it had not registered with me. I guess being busy, just being busy. And we worked together on that, and we paid that year by the month to get it caught up. And then this pastor paid it in 2015 for 2013. He sent a check in January. And she said, whoever signed it said that it was applied to 2013. And then 2014 is when I became so ill in the early spring. You see, in my travels, I don't get many calls or options to go. And that's how we make our living, and that's how we support the prayer center along with others as I go to places, is have them to pledge to the prayer center. So I had not gotten far enough into the year without being sick. And that set me down for pretty much the half of the year.
Notwithstanding a payment that may have been made in January of 2014, it is my belief that there remains an outstanding balance that has been communicated and not satisfied. We can confirm what that payment may have been, but again, we bill for the prior year. So in 2015, we bill for 2014, that which was paid and due. In 14, we would have invoiced for 13.
The problem was there was balance due from
There was
12.
there was balance due even prior. And there was a couple of payments made on that outstanding balance. This is when council last addressed the issue. We made written notification. There were a couple of payments made, is my understanding, and then the payments ceased. And I think that may have been during the time that there may have been some illness or, yeah.
So we need to pay for 2014 and 2015, which I can do. If you just give me 30 to 60 days when I can travel, we can do that. And we will put that first and foremost.
Reverend Sandlin, can I ask a quick question?
Sure.
I wasn't here when we did the original, when you came to the original agreement with the city. And what do you think was part of that agreement? I noticed the mayor kind of mentioned that a minute ago about kind of your expectation for what the prayer center was all about. And it sounds like it was going to be, the intent was to be a lively kind of an event center where there was a good draw of people with greater regularity and more use of the space. Do you see that your vision came to fruition, or that?
I see that the vision has been coming to fruition. It takes time to build ministry. And when we started this, I mean, you know, people, they're accustomed to churches. But when you say we have a prayer center, there's a time that you just have to explain. People don't understand. And I was telling Mr. Driggers this week that we have reached out to our community. We have done things for women in the city. We've done things for men. We've brought children in the summertime, and we've taught them prayer classes. We've done all kinds of things to get people involved. But ministry just takes time to build, and that's where we are. We're building every single day. Now, even though I had to take a little time off, I'm up and running. The doctor has released me, and I intend to stay on top of this. And we went through a lot to get this put together. All of us did. And this is something that we wanted for our city, and we felt like God was leading us to move forward and put that here. So it would help everybody and help all of us. It was not a deliberate thing.
No, I don't think that, and it sounds like you've had some mishaps along the way that have kind of taken you off course that were unexpected. And, you know, I'll just say that you obviously have a calling in ministry, and I feel like, you know, the calling of this council, I can't speak for everybody, I can speak for myself, but my calling is to be a public servant. That's, you know, the mission that God's given me, is to serve the public and to determine the highest and best use for this public facility that's owned by all of the citizens of Greer.
Exactly.
And yeah, based on from what you just told me and the original intent of the agreement that we had, I'm not sure that this ministry has gotten there. And the fact that you're in arrears at this point is part of that.
Well, see, that's why I was trying to explain to you that my ministry is my livelihood. And so when I cannot travel, I don't have extra money. So, or that's part of our livelihood. I mean, we live like that. And then as I travel is where I make these connections where people are willing to support us and keep us moving forward. And so that's how we do it. We still have supporters. And the money is coming in, and that we have the pledges that are made to catch up the insurance already. And I apologize, but I was just so sick. There was nothing I could do. I couldn't travel.
Well, I'll say this too. I mean, I was in sales for over 10 years, and I traveled to make a living, so I can certainly empathize with your position. But, you know, in some cases, some things are blessing and some things are burden. And in this particular scenario, I'm not sure that this isn't a burden for you at this point. And if your mission and your ministry is on the road and traveling, then is that not where you want to focus your attention moving forward?
For what?
So if your mission is to be on the road and travel,
My mission.
how does this facility fit into what it is that you're trying to accomplish?
I'm trying to inform people of the prayer center that we have here. But in order to do that, I go and I take slides, I give the history of how we acquired the building, how we renovated it, the things that it took to make that happen, and people join in because of that. They become, when they see something, they're more apt to support it and pour into it. So when I go and I make a presentation, it's not like picking up the phone and saying, well, we need you to come down here and see what we're doing with the prayer center. The traveling part helps me to promote the prayer center in different areas.
With all due respect, the 8 or 9 years prior to this that you were well enough to travel, I believe you should have been able to get on your feet as far as this prayer center being a viable, ongoing thing. The grounds haven't been kept. I mean, even the simplest things have not been done. If you'll recall, we had to prod you to do the improvements you said you were going to do back a good many years ago. So I agree with my fellow councilman that this sounds like it's been more of a burden to you, and it might be best to divest yourself of it.
Mr. Mayor, I'd like to ask that you call the question, please.
I have a motion on the floor to proceed with voiding the contract, with the stipulation that administrator will investigate any payments that may be pertinent to this question. Have a second in that regard?
Yes, sir.
Question's been called. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas.
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council executive session, we've got 2 personnel matters. Thank you, Ms. Samuels.
So does that mean I've lost my building?
Yes, ma'am, it does. Administrator will work with our legal counsel to notify you. Executive session, we'll consider 2 personnel matters. Do I hear a motion to adjourn into executive session?
So moved.
Second?
Motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Ms. Dumas, Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis,
Yes.
Ms. Albert,
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council executive session, we've considered 2 personnel matters, taking no action in regards to either. Do I hear a motion to come out of executive session?
So
No
moved.
motion. Second. One motion and second, both, okay.
You've got the 2 of them. You put them in any order you want. Have a motion and a second. Ms. Duncan?
Mr. Arrowood,
Yes.
Ms. Booker,
Yes.
Mr. Dumas,
Yes.
Mr. Bettis.
Yes.
Ms. Albert.
Yes.
Mayor Danner.
Yes. Council, I thank you for your time today. I look forward to seeing you tomorrow. We adjourn.